In this episode, we're talking all about fear, as we do in lots of my podcasts, but we're talking about your fear. We're talking about your anxiety about leaving your puppy. Here's the thing. During the pandemic, we encountered a whole different situation with regards to leaving our dogs. Essentially, we discovered that we couldn't leave our dogs. During 2021 and for lots of 2020, many of us were in lockdown. Some of us still are in lockdown. Many of us were unable to leave our homes, and that had an impact on our dogs and on our puppies. If you got your puppy in the last year or so, you might have been super aware of the horror stories of puppies who'd never learned to be alone, suddenly struggling with separation anxiety. And that might have left you feeling really nervous about leaving your puppy because you've heard that if you leave your puppy for too long and they stress out and they get anxious, you're going to create a problem that's going to take a long time to fix. So if this is you and this is what you fear, and if this is what you're feeling anxious about, stay tuned to this podcast because I want to tell you what you do need to do with a puppy who hasn't learned to be alone, and why your fear of leaving your puppy might actually be the big thing that you need to work on. Hello, and welcome to the Be Right Back Separation Anxiety Podcast. Hi, I'm Julie Naismith, dog trainer, author, and full-on separation anxiety geek. I've helped thousands of dogs overcome separation anxiety with my books, my online programs, my trainer certification, and my separation anxiety training app. And this podcast is all about sharing my tips and tricks to help you teach your dog how to be happy at home alone too. All right, first of all, I need to say that if you are worried about leaving your puppy because you're worried that leaving your puppy for too long is going to create separation anxiety, kudos to you. Because unlike lots of dog owners that have come before, you are thinking about this in the right way. Why do I say that? Well, because traditionally the advice was always just let the puppy get on with it. If your puppy cries or whines or barks when you go out, that's just puppy stuff. Don't worry about it. Your puppy just has to learn to get on with being home alone. But the thing is, that's really outdated advice. Even for puppies who don't have a tendency towards anxiety, just leaving them to whine and cry isn't the best way to do things. It's not nice. It's not humane. It's not a kind way to treat a puppy. And so you are right to think that leaving your puppy to just cry and scream isn't a good thing. You've definitely taken on board all the stuff you've been reading, and hopefully maybe you've been listening to my podcasts and reading my book, and you know that there is a different way of doing things. However, what I'm seeing, and I saw this in a Facebook post the other day in one of my free Facebook groups, what I'm seeing is that with all the best intentions, some of you have gone kind of to the opposite extreme. Let me tell you about this thread that I saw. The thread went something like this. Somebody had had a puppy for 6 or 7 months, I think. For a portion of that, they were in lockdown and they couldn't leave. But then as they started to, or they were able to leave the house, but they were still working from home. Then as people started returning to the office, they continued to work from home and they continued to utilize sitters for the times that they did go out, because there was so much worry that leaving their puppy for longer than their puppy could cope with was going to cause their puppy separation anxiety. They didn't suspect that their puppy had separation anxiety. So this isn't a puppy that obviously was presenting with anxiety and the owner wasn't trying to deal with a puppy who was already anxious. They were trying to not let their puppy develop home alone anxiety. And so the comment was, I don't know what to do. I feel really anxious about leaving my puppy. I've never left her, but I don't want to make her anxious. I don't want to create a puppy who grows into a dog with separation anxiety. So I just don't want to leave her. I'm just too scared. And then to my surprise, but I'm so glad I read this thread, lots of people jumped in and said the same thing. I'm really worried about this too. My friend's got a dog she can't leave now and she was told to cry out and I don't want to try that. But I'm so nervous about leaving my puppy because I don't want to create a problem that I'm not going to be able to fix. And I jumped into the comments and I said, whoa, 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 whoa. And I want to say that to you as well. I love that you're thinking about your puppy's needs, but you don't need to be anxious. There are things that you can do to safely teach your puppy that being home alone is okay. And that's the key. You are doing the right thing in not leaving your puppy to cry out. So massive, massive kudos for that. But what's missing in the approach you're taking, if this is you, is you do need to give your puppy some alone time. And I know that makes you nervous because you're worried that any alone time is going to create a massive problem of home alone anxiety. But it depends how you do it. So I want to help you kind of complete the journey because you've started really well. You've taken on board that we're not going to let these puppies just be on their own and be distressed. But what you need to do now is be brave and take the next step of gradually teaching home alone time. Let me tell you what that's going to look like. So first of all, this isn't about going from not leaving your puppy to then leaving your puppy for an hour to squeal and screech. This is about structured home alone time that teaches your puppy in a very gentle and gradual way that they can handle alone time. You see, the thing is, when a puppy comes into the world, there's some things that they are naturally able to cope with, but there's lots about the world we bring them into that isn't natural and it isn't something that they are naturally able to cope with. Great examples of that are things like body handling. We assume, because most dogs allow us to, that dogs like being petted and they like being touched. But it's something that they have to learn for the most part. And if you've ever tried to clip your puppy's toenails, you might have noticed your puppy wriggling its foot. That's a really unnatural thing for a dog to have its paw held by somebody else because that's a threat. So we teach puppies that having their paw held is okay. And in fact, it's really pleasurable because we might pair it with food. We teach them that going to the vets and having injections is okay. So there's a ton of stuff in a puppy's life that they have to learn to be okay with. We want them to learn to be okay with skateboards and men with hats and beards. And the way we do that is we use puppy socialization. And in a nutshell, that's exposing or letting a puppy experience something novel, something new, in a way that's really safe and non-scary. So it's not taking the puppy to the vet and letting it screech and scream and say the puppy just needs to learn that the vets are okay. It's not taking a puppy to the dog park, throwing it in with all the big dogs, and when it tucks its tail and starts to look really scared, saying, well, she needs to learn about the big dogs. It's safe, small exposure that the puppy can cope with. So anything we want a dog to grow up being okay with, we have to give it safe, gentle exposure to early in life. And that, in a nutshell, is puppy socialization. And we need to do this in particular for things that don't come naturally to dogs. And a big thing that doesn't come naturally to dogs is being left home alone. If we don't expose a dog to something that we need it to be okay with later in life, there's a really good chance that it can develop a fear of that. So we can create fear in a dog, in a puppy, in two ways. One, we can give it too much scary exposure to that thing. We can, throw the puppy in at the deep end with all the big bouncy dogs at the dog park and leave it there even when it's petrified. Or we can never socialize a puppy with big bouncy dogs at the dog park from a safe distance in a very tiny incremental way. We can do both of those. So we can omit doing the thing that we need the puppy to get used to, or we can do it too much. And both of those things can create longer term fear. So when it comes to home alone time, the way that we get a puppy to be okay with being alone is, yes, we definitely don't do the too much thing, the too much alone time, the scary alone time. And that's what you're all doing brilliantly. So thank you for taking that on board. We do need to do the other side of it though, and we need to make sure that our puppies and our dogs are having small, gradual, gentle exposure to alone time. So that's the missing piece of the equation. Now, if you're feeling frightened about that, I want you to take a deep breath, and I want you to know that I am giving you permission. I'm giving you permission to leave your puppy, but you're going to do it in a really structured and gentle way. How are you going to do that? You're just going to start with a really small amount of time. It might be seconds, and you're going to gradually increase that time, noting how your puppy does with those seconds, and only increasing the time when your puppy seems okay with that duration. No big jumping up in minutes or 5 minutes, seconds will do. If you've got a puppy that really responds very, very well to the home alone training, then yes, you can go up in bigger chunks of time. Of course you can. But there's very little downside to going gradually, other than it's just going to take you a while. But better that it takes you a while than you push your puppy too far and too fast. So every time you go out of the door and you leave your puppy for these small increments in time, you're teaching your puppy that they can handle being alone, that it's absolutely fine, nothing to fear, we're all good. I don't want you to worry either about the fact that maybe you could have started this earlier. I mean, I would love it if from day one, when a puppy comes home, we prioritize home alone training up there with house training and teaching our puppy to sit and walk nicely next to us. But often we don't because we're not told to do that. I absolutely tell everybody now that this is something they need to do, but you might not have heard it from trainers. You might not have been told that you need to do early home alone training. And so if this is you and you're thinking, oh, why didn't I do this sooner? Stop beating yourself up right now. Stop it, because if you didn't know you were supposed to do that, how could you have done it? So don't beat yourself up for not starting this earlier, and give it a go now. Where can you find out more information on this? Well, if you're in my free Facebook groups, there's videos on how we do the process of training, exposing your dog gradually to alone time, and you can find a ton of information about it in both of my Be Right Back books. So you need to take a big deep breath, even if you're feeling scared, and start leaving your puppy in gradually increasing increments of time. You've done all the good stuff of not leaving your puppy for too long. Now you're going to teach your puppy that being left is okay. The other thing you can do to teach your puppy that being home alone without you is a good thing is you can allow them to experience a world without you. And what do I mean by that? Well, if you are back at work now, chances are you're already doing this because you're probably using a daycare. You're probably having friends coming sit your puppy, or maybe you're paying for a pet sitter. And all of that helps teach your puppy that there is more to the world than you, which is a really good thing for your puppy to learn. If you've got a puppy who not only freaks out when they're alone, so maybe your puppy is anxious, maybe that's why you've been worried about leaving them. And maybe your puppy freaks out not just when it's alone, but when you're not around too. I've got a plan for you as well. So don't worry, we can work on that. And that's the technique that I call spreading the love, where you're going to get as many people as possible, but start with kind of 3 or 4 key people in your puppy's life who are going to do more of the care, more of the fun stuff, more of the feeding, more of the loving, and more of the cuddling. And what that helps to do is not only does it teach your puppy that there's more to the world than you, but it teaches your puppy that actually being without you is really quite cool, because great stuff happens when you're not around. You might need to, in the process, step back a little bit from being in your puppy's life, which I know is going to be hard. But by doing that, you can absolutely show your puppy that he's safe without you, and also actually it's pretty cool when you're not around because amazing stuff happens. So just quickly recapping what you're going to do. First of all, deep breath, and don't be scared about trying to leave your puppy. Even if you've never left your puppy before, it's not too late, and you're not going to break your puppy or cause long-term anxiety if you do this in the right way, which is number 2. working on gradually exposing your puppy to alone time. So it's not going from not leaving your puppy to leaving your puppy for hours. It's taking a very gentle approach to increasing the amount of time that your puppy can be alone. If you don't think your puppy has any anxiety at being left, you can go up in quite big steps with the alone time. So you might do 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. If your puppy freaks when you leave currently, then you're thinking more like seconds. And then the third thing you're going to do is you're going to teach your puppy that there is way more to the world than you. You're going to spread that love amongst friends and family and increase your puppy's circle of trust. And by the way, that circle of trust can include daycare staff and it can include pet sitters. It's basically anybody other than you. So even if you're living on your own, you can do this. Most important of all, don't panic now thinking it's too late. I've left it too late. I should have done this earlier, because it isn't too late. And you definitely can teach your puppy that being home alone is okay. If you need help and support in doing this, jump into the Facebook groups that I offer, because maybe what you need is just permission and guidance on doing this because it feels so weird and unnatural. All right, so whatever you do, give it a go. Don't worry about what you haven't done, and take it from me, you've done the right thing. Far worse that you would have left your puppy for longer than it could cope with, than you've been with your puppy all this time because you didn't want to create separation anxiety. So off you go, start the training, and keep me posted in the Facebook group. Bye for now. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Be Right Back Separation Anxiety podcast. If you want to find out more about how I can help you further, head over to julienaismith.com. Meanwhile, if you enjoyed listening today, I would love it if you would head over to wherever you listen to your podcasts and consider rating my show. Thanks so much. Good luck with that training, and bye for now.